The biggest mistake photographers make on Instagram is only posting their work. To be a successful photographer today, we need more than just beautiful work. We need to be able to stand out in another way, and one of the best ways to do that is by using Instagram stories strategically. I love Instagram stories because they only last 24 hours. Some people would argue that that's annoying. Why am I going to spend time creating something that's only going to last 24 hours? But I prefer to look at it as a testing ground. I can post about whatever I want, see what gets the most engagement without putting something permanent on my feed. Instagram stories is also where I connect with people the most. It's like a slice of my life, and I am inviting people along for the journey. I don't really spend time creating Instagram stories. I am just documenting what I'm already doing. So in the rest of this video, we're going to talk about what kind of content you can document on Instagram, as well as some technical tips to make sure you're getting the most reach and engagement as possible. One of the easiest things you can do that supports you posting your finished portfolio work is posting behind the scenes content. You're already doing a photo shoot, so set up your phone and capture 10 seconds of you shooting or setting up a light or posing or doing anything on shoot day. People love to see behind the scenes because they're nosy. I'm nosy. I love behind the scenes. And if you are nervous to post more personal stuff, I feel like behind the scenes is a really good gateway into posting more about your life. It's still professional because it's behind the scenes of you working, but it's a bit more personal. So when you do share your finished portfolio work, think about how can we turn that into a story? Can you post the behind the scenes first and then caption it saying, stay tuned for the final product? Or vice versa, if you post the finished work, maybe caption it and say, here's how we got this shot. That's a good way to get engagement on multiple story posts if you have more than one up. I would say though, the key to success on Instagram stories is sharing more about your personal life. I think there's a big misconception in, well, I don't want to post everything. I'm a very private person. That's okay because you are in control of everything that you share online. Even though you have a professional business account, people still want to get to know you. From my own personal experience, my most engaged with story is a movie review that I did while I was rewatching the Twilight series. It was very silly. I just was watching the movie and was like, this is ridiculous. Who made this? Like, I need to talk about it. Obviously, this is not related to photography or my business at all, but I still have people that talk to me about these stories. Like, literally yesterday, I was talking to a friend and she brought up those stories. I filmed these 4 years ago now, and people still remember it. And because they remember it, they're like, oh, that's Emily. Emily's a photographer. It's still kind of business related. The second best performing story that I had was when I was telling the story of when I moved from California to Boston on a one-way flight with my dog. I am not going to tell it here. You have to go to Instagram if you want to see that. So you are in control of what you share. I wanted to share both of these things. I'm also married, but I don't show my husband on camera because he's a private person. A lot of people think, oh, well, I don't want to show my family or my kids, so what am I going to post about? You don't have to post about them. Or if you want to talk about them, you can mention them without sharing their identity or posting videos or pictures of them if you don't want to. We need to do this because people connect with people, not just businesses. The next type of content that I highly recommend posting is face to camera stories, where you film yourself talking to the camera. It doesn't have to be a high production. You don't have to have fancy lights. You already have the thing. You just need your phone. The reason why I highly recommend doing this is because it is the closest thing you can do short of talking to someone in person. It's like a form of networking. When people see your face and they hear you talking, they're going to trust you more. I know it's scary. The very first time I posted a face-to-camera story on Instagram, it took me 30 minutes and I filmed like a 30-second story. But now, because I've been doing it for so long, it is just second nature to me. I don't think twice about it. I don't have sticky notes prepared. I just get on and talk. My challenge for you today is to film a face-to-camera story. And if you're nervous about it, that's okay. Just know the people who are watching are excited to see you. Now, I do have some technical tips for making sure that you get the most reach and engagement on these Instagram stories. The first tip is to avoid the millennial pause. That is when you start recording, you look and wait to see if you're recording, take a breath and say, hi. Okay, we've all seen it. We've all done it. I still do it, but what I do is I will trim the Instagram story to cut out the first like 1 or 2 seconds where I'm doing that because people will just tap past it. It's unfortunate, but we gotta play the game. My second tip is when you are filming face-to-camera stories, make sure you add captions. And I'm not talking about the built-in caption feature. You can definitely use that, but what I do is I will actually listen back to the recording and type in the captions myself in a text box. The reason I do it this way is because if you filmed a 30-second or a 1-minute story, people don't want to sit and wait for the captions to come up. So I will just type a summary all at once. If it is too much text at once and I can't fit it all into a text bubble, I will use a text box and type in the summary and then have the captions going. So if someone's really interested, then they can keep watching. But I also don't recommend you talk for 30 seconds or a minute straight anyway. It would be better to split up what you're saying into 15 or 20-second stories and post them back to back versus filming a really long one. I have noticed that people will watch my stories for longer when I break it up this way and when I add the captions, because they can quickly skim through it versus waiting 5 minutes. If I have 5 1-minute stories up, that's just way too long. My third tip is to not post a bunch of stories all at once. You know, at the top of your phone when you're going through stories and they look like little ants instead of little dashes. There is not a hard and fast rule for this, but I generally try to keep my stories to like 5 to 10 cards at a time. Of course, if you're telling a story or marketing something, you might need more, but just know that the more that you have, the less people will watch till the end. My fourth tip is to let stories expire. The reason we do this is because when your stories have expired, meaning you don't have the bubble at all, and then you post a new story, you will automatically get bumped to the front of people who are already the most engaged with you. If you constantly have a story up all the time, then sometimes when people go to your stories after you've posted a new one, they will get shoved into the middle of a story from yesterday, and maybe they don't have the front of the story that has already expired. That can be confusing and that can reduce your reach, so I tend to let stories expire. I never really delete them. I've heard of people doing that. I personally don't do it because I like to have it archived for later, so I just let them expire after 24 hours and then we'll go post another story. My fifth tip is when you post to your feed, do share it to your stories, but don't just slap a sticker over it and say, tap to read the caption. That is outdated. It used to work back in, 2018, 2019, but people don't like that anymore. Rather than doing something clickbaity, think about how can you add value in this story? Is there something else you can mention in that story to get people to want to click on that post on their own? We want to give them a reason why they want to tap through and watch the whole reel or scroll through the whole carousel. Tip number 6 is to always reply to messages and comments. Even if somebody, just hearts or adds an emoji reaction to your story, I always try to reply with a message. Just a quick thank you or an LOL, isn't that so funny? It helps open the door for a conversation and it's great for engagement. My next tip is to use the story features. We are given so many fun little things like polls, stickers, questions. If there's something that fits with what you're saying, just add it in. I like to do this on the first story that I post for the day because that also helps with reach. So we've talked a lot about how to use Instagram stories strategically just in documenting your everyday life and business. But how do we use Instagram when we want to actually sell something? Stay tuned for my next video where I'm going over how to effectively sell your services on social media. See you there.